The wind whispered through the towering pines that surrounded the cabin as we arrived at the remote Maine lake for our weekend getaway. The place looked serene, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. My friends, Sarah, Mark, and I, were eager to escape our mundane lives and embrace the tranquility of nature. The cabin, perched on the edge of the lake, oozed rustic charm. We unpacked our bags, laughing and joking, while the sun painted the sky with hues of pink and orange. As darkness fell, we gathered around a crackling fire, the flames casting eerie shadows on the trees. "We should tell scary stories," Mark suggested, a mischievous grin playing on his lips. Sarah and I exchanged amused glances, but agreed. The forest around us seemed alive with secrets, a perfect backdrop for chilling tales. Sarah began with a story about an old hermit who'd lived in these woods, a man rumored to have made a pact with a malevolent spirit. Mark followed, recounting a tale of a ghostly figure that haunted a nearby abandoned cabin. "Your turn," Mark nudged me, his eyes glinting with anticipation. I cleared my throat, trying to shake off the growing sense of dread that had settled over me. "All right, listen closely," I began, my voice hushed. I told them about a local legend, the story of the lake dweller. The tale spoke of a monstrous creature that lurked beneath the surface, a being with a hunger for human souls. As I spoke, I noticed the fire's glow flickering strangely, casting grotesque shadows that danced around us. I chalked it up to the wind, but the unsettling feeling in my gut intensified. "Come on, don't be such a buzzkill," Mark teased, but even he seemed slightly uneasy. We laughed off the tension and turned in for the night, each of us retreating to our respective bedrooms. The cabin creaked and groaned as if it had a life of its own. Sleep eluded me, my mind plagued by disturbing dreams of murky waters and unseen horrors. A sudden crash jolted me awake. Heart pounding, I stumbled out of bed and into the living room. The fire had died down, casting a dim, eerie light that barely illuminated the room. My friends were already there, their faces pale as they stared at the shattered window. Something was outside," Sarah stammered. Mark grabbed a flashlight, and we cautiously stepped outside, the cold night air biting into our skin. A mist had settled over the lake, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. The sound of lapping water seemed louder than before, and an overwhelming sense of dread engulfed us. Then we heard it, a guttural, inhuman growl that echoed across the water. Fear clamped down on my chest, and I knew that the lake dweller was no mere legend. Panic set in as we scrambled back into the cabin, barricading the door. "What do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled. "We stay put until morning," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. But the night dragged on, and the creature's haunting growls never ceased. As dawn broke, we cautiously peeked outside, the mist lifting to reveal a calm, innocent-looking lake. But the terror remained etched on our faces. We decided to leave immediately, packing our things in a hurry. The cabin, once a charming retreat, had become a prison. As we drove away, a sense of relief washed over us. But the memory of that night would never fade. Days turned into weeks, and despite our attempts to rationalize the events, a gnawing fear took root in our minds. One evening, I received a package in the mail. Inside was a photograph, our photograph, taken during our ill-fated weekend at the cabin. But something was horribly wrong. In the image, our faces were distorted, our features twisted into grotesque, nightmarish expressions. Fear tightened its grip on me as I stared at the photo, the events of that night flooding back. I called Sarah and Mark, my voice trembling as I described what I had received. "We've been marked," Mark whispered, his voice heavy with dread. "The lake dweller. It's not just a story. It's real." From then on, strange things began to happen. Shadows seemed to move on their own, whispers echoed through empty rooms, and a sense of being watched was inescapable. One by one, we started to see things, horrific, nightmarish visions that tore at our sanity. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and we became prisoners of our own fear. Now I sit alone in my darkened room, the memories of that weekend etched into my mind like a scar. I can hear its growls in the wind, its whispers in the shadows, the lake dweller waiting to claim its next victim. And I know that even death won't free me from the terror that awaits in the depths of that cursed Maine lake.